Shalom upon all the children of Israel and Judah forever. I'm King Kobe. Welcome back to a educational session. I'm going to read straight out of my notes that I wrote this morning, and I'm going to post this immediately. Um, so the day begins at dawn. Now I know that sounds obvious. Daylight begins at dawn. But the reason why I say that is because most of us calculate time by the Roman calendar, the pagan Roman calendar, the Gregorian calendar. It is false. It is not biblical. It is man made lies. A day does not begin at midnight in the middle of darkness. According to scripture, the day begins at dawn. There are 12 hours in a day. Yeshua said that in the book of John. So let me begin with Psalm 55, verse 17. Evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice, and he shall hear my voice. Psalm 55, verse 17. And he shall hear my voice. So, 3 times a day, I should pray, you should pray, we should pray. Evening and morning and at noon, we should pray, and he will hear our voice. So, approximately, for example's sake, let's say the day begins 6 o'clock in the morning. Dawn is morning time, is part of the morning time. But morning includes the darkness after midnight, as well as after dawn. So, morning begins from after midnight, the darkness, begins the morning. The morning begins right after midnight and ends at noontime. So the morning is approximately 12 hours. That is 6 hours of darkness approximately and 6 hours of light. That's the morning until midday. Why do I say that? Because of Mark chapter 1 verse 35. So read Mark chapter 1 verse 35 and you'll understand that Yeshua woke up a great while before day, while it was yet dark, and he went out into a solitary place and there prayed. So that was just one experience that mentions a certain time that he prayed in a solitary place, and it gives you a time frame, a structure. It was a great while before the day, before the sunrise, before dawn, while it was dark, it says, in the darkness, and he went and prayed. Now, Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 4 gives more timing of the day to let you know that the morning, the morning is part dark and part light, and it lasts until noontime. Let us arise and go to fight war and be there at noon. And then it continues. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 4 and 5 continues talking about the structure of the daytime, that the evening has shadows. Now let's get into the evening. Evening begins after noontime. So evening begins right after midday. Jeremiah chapter 4 verse 6 says, the shadows of the evening. When you read that text, you'll see it. So approximately, so midday doesn't last very long. It's just a short time. It's when the sun is directly above your head and you cannot see your shadow long to the left or long to the right or long in front or long in back. It is, your shadow is directly under you. If you look at a straight pole, a light post, a clothesline, or any stick in the ground, anything that's straight, okay, anything that is standing up vertically, you can look at the shadow. and see where there's no shadow around it at the bottom, not on this side, that side, no side, the shadow, there's no shadow. And when you see the shadow begins to go long one way, that's afternoon, or whichever direction it is that you're standing in. So that's when evening begins. Yes, evening time has shadows. So Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 4 and 5 talks about the evening time having shadows because the sun is still up in the sky during the evening. So evening does not begin at sunset. No, it begins afternoon or midday. Evening does not begin when the sun sets. Evening begins after noontime or midday. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 5 says to go by night, which is darkness of the evening. That is the darkness of the evening. So evening has light portion of it, which is afternoon, and the dark part of the evening, which is after sunset. So Genesis chapter 1, verse 4 and 5 says darkness is called night. The darkness, the Most High Yah, our Creator, called the darkness night. After he said, let there be light, so he separated. Now let's get into that. Day and night are separated by Yah in Genesis chapter 1, verse 4, the law of separation. Also, when you read Genesis chapter 1, verse 6, the law of separation to create the heaven on the second day, okay, to create the firmament, and you call the firmament heaven on the second day. That's the law of separation. That's the only thing he created on the second day. And Genesis chapter 1, verse 9, the law to separate the sea from dry land on the third day of creation. The law of separation came in the first 3 days of creation week. He separated the light from the darkness. He separated the waters above from the waters below on the second day. And on the third day, he separated the seas from the dry land. The first 3 days of creation happened by Yah separating one thing from another. And then on the sixth day, he separated one part of Adam, which is his rib, from the rest of Adam's body. He separated one man into two parts. A man is not one man until he is married. Before a man gets married, I said before a man gets married, he is half of a man. That is why it is not good for the man to be alone. Yah said, I will make a helper fit for him. So it's the law of opposite attraction when it comes to man and woman. I personally believe creation in Genesis, when the Most High said, when he said, like it says in the Psalms, and he spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. I believe personally that as it is written in the book of Genesis and Jubilees, that creation happened at midday, noontime. That's when he spoke, at noontime. He spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. That's what I personally believe. Psalm 55 verse 17 gives me a little backing into that. Evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud. These are sanctified times of prayer, separated times of prayer. Yeshua said there are 12 hours in a day. Day, which begins at dawn and ends at sunset. 12 hours from sunrise to sunset. The night, which he has said is darkness, begins at sunset and ends at dawn. So these two, day and night, are not one because Yah separated them. The day is just the day and the night is just the night. They are two separated one from another. They're not one. They were separated from the first day That's a law of separation to create the day and the night. Therefore, when the Creator said, remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy, it does not include the night. Remember the Shabbat day, not the Shabbat night, to keep it holy. Remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy. So the night, remember, which is separated from the day. Now, I want you to do as homework, read 1 Kings chapter 18. 1 Kings chapter 18. Read the entire chapter, 1 Kings chapter 18. And specifically highlight, put a red pen or yellow marker, highlighter, verse 26, verse 27, which mentions the noon, verse 29, which is the time of the evening sacrifice, which is approximately around 3 o'clock p.m., verse 29. Highlight also verses 36, which says this day, not this night, but this day, verse 36. Highlight also verse 44, verse 45, mentions daytime. Go into chapter 19, because the story is a whole story of Elijah doing the sacrifice and then running from Jezebel. Chapter 19, verse 2, is when Jezebel made her threat and said, about this time tomorrow, I swear by my God that you, Elijah, will be dead by this same time tomorrow. So you see, a time frame is being given in the book of 1 Kings chapter 18. Highlight also chapter 19, verse 2 and verse 4, which verse 4 mentions a day's journey. Elijah ran about a day's journey away from Jezebel. So it gives you events that happen within 2 days' timing. The day that Elijah killed the prophets of Jezebel, and then the following day, and it gives you the whole timeline of how that whole day went from morning to noontime, and then the time of the evening sacrifice, and then continuing after that into the very next day, not night, but next day. So night came between the 2 days, so it was 2 days, chapter 18 and chapter 19. So the reason why I mention all of this is to remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy, which lasts 12 hours. Christ Yeshua said, other than 12 hours in a day. The day begins at dawn and ends at sunset. So when the sun sets in the evening time, Shabbat is over. And night, darkness, is separated from the day. So the night and day is not one. They're separated from the beginning. So the Shabbat day is not 24 hours long. It's 12 hours long. Daylight time. Wherever you live in the world, wherever you're watching this video, Shabbat is as long as the sun is up in the sky and there's light. As long as there's light, it is Shabbat. When it becomes dark, Shabbat is over. So Shabbat does not begin evening time at sunset like I used to believe and teach for many years. I was lied to because I believed in Rome's calendar and Rome's timing system, which is totally pagan and wrong, and is designed for false worship, so that all the true people of the Most High will go and worship false gods. He prophesied that this would happen. They're worshiping false gods, not worshiping Him according to the true way. This is all about worship. This is all about worship. So, until next time, Shalom. Woo. Shalom upon all the children of Israel and Judah forever.